The crowd thinned out. What happened? Some people had to leave and some people got exhausted, maybe. We'll see what happens. Well, I picked this verse with a kind of cute thought in mind. We had yesterday, what we're traditionally calling it our 64 round day. And we're following in the line of Lord Brahma, who had much longer than a 64 round day. 100 celestial years. He had a long japa retreat. Mantra. The process of his receiving all of what he received was the same mantras than our Gayatri mantras that we chant, he received. And he chanted for 100 celestial years, which is a long time. There's a lot of zeros in that number. A little background, and I wanted to cover this verse 31. Many of you know there are 4 verses that are said to have been the Chatur Shloki, the 4 essential verses of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. One can say that the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam rests upon those 4. And it starts with text 33. So this is before 33, it's 31. A little chronological background. What's the problem? Someone's not able to hear. Okay. It's okay? Wow. The Canto 2, Chapter 9 is part of the process of creation. And in the beginning of this chapter, Brahma has appeared. There's a few verses that just describe basically Sambandha, the nature of the absolute truth and the relationship of all things. And it starts with, pretty much as the painting shows, Brahma is born. He has appeared on the top of a lotus, and he has already this creative impetus. He somehow has this understanding that he's supposed to build the universe. It doesn't say how he has that understanding. Super Soul gave him that understanding. He's got to build the universe. And he's not clear how to build the universe. And second is he's self-inquisitive. Not just what he has to do, it's who am I? And where did I come from? Some fundamental questions that most people that have some important service to do, they don't slow down and ask those 2 questions. Where did I come from and who am I? So he asked those 2 questions along with searching for the answer of how he's to build the universe. That's how chapter 9 begins. And he's very intelligent. You're going to build the universe, you have to be really intelligent. And his inquisitiveness, as you see from the painting, there's this splashing below the lotus, he hears the sound of the ocean, some water, splashing water. And he reasons intuitively, if I climb down the stem, I'm likely to find out where I came from. Very reasonable. So he starts to climb down the stem and climbs down the stem and climbs down the stem and climbs down the stem, and he can't find an end to the stem. So that wasn't a good solution. Climbing down the stem to find out where he came from wasn't the solution. And then he hears the syllables tapa 3 times. And hearing those, just tapa 3 times, he knows what that means. And that what that means is he is supposed to do tapasya. Now it doesn't say what tapasya, but tapasya. So he climbs back up the stem, sits on the lotus, and there are 2 versions. There's the Brahma Samhita version and the Bhagavatam version. In the Bhagavatam version, Canto 1, Chapter 1, verse number 5, I think it is, there's a statement that he, Lord Brahma, was initiated from within his heart. Because what is there? There's darkness in all directions. And nothing. No body, just splashing of water beneath, but nothing. So the second explanation is, as he's preparing himself to perform tapa or tapasya, the Saraswati, because there's not his wife Saraswati or the goddess learning Saraswati, it's the primordial internal potency Saraswati, gives him a mantra. Now maybe that was done through his heart, doesn't specify, but Saraswati gives him a mantra, the same mantra that we receive, same mantra that Gopakumar received. It's the Gopal mantra or Madan Gopal mantra. And he starts chanting non-stop. I mean, it's a long time to do anything. There was no prasadam. There was nothing. And now this is from Brahma Samhita. This, what I'm just describing, is not Bhagavatam, but the narration parallels, but not all the verses that exist are in the Bhagavatam. So the Brahma Samhita says, he separately, as the painting shows, he heard in the language of Brahma Samhita the flute song of Krishna. And the flute song of Krishna entered his ear. And then from his ear, that sound came out his mouth. And from his mouth, he chanted the next mantra, what we know as Kama Gayatri mantra. And those 2 mantras he chanted for the remainder of that 100 celestial years. And then something very amazing happened. The light went on. There was no light, but Lord Vishnu appeared before him, surrounded by this potency, that potency, there's so many potencies. And many other nice things happened. So he then, Lord Brahma presents 4 questions. We'll see what those 4 questions are in a moment in earlier verses of this chapter. And then in this verse, text 31, there's a statement Shukadeva Goswami is narrating that says the Lord is making a promise to Brahma that he's going to shortly answer one by one those 4 questions. So now here's the verse, text 31. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Jnanam Paramaguhyam Me Yad Vijnana Samanvitam Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha Gana Gaditam Maya. And the translation is, the personality of Godhead said, no. Knowledge about me, as described in the scriptures, of course there's no scriptures yet, but they're eternal, is very confidential. That's this sa-rahasyam, very confidential. And it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. Now, the cleansing of the heart, the Chaita, Darpana, Marjanam, has been experienced by Lord Brahma. And he is now able to hear the Lord and see and converse with the personality of Godhead face to face. And it's not a dream, it's face to face. It's the personality of Godhead makes himself visible. He can manifest and make himself not visible as he wishes. So I'm going to read the purport. Lord Brahma is the topmost devotee of the Lord within the universe, and therefore the personality of Godhead replied to his 4 principal inquiries in 4 important statements, which are known as the original Bhagavatam in 4 verses. So, not specifically identified this way, but as we know, Lord Brahma, Vyasadeva compiled the Vedas, and in compiling the Vedas, he also compiled the Puranas, and he also compiled amongst the Puranas the Bhagavad Purana. So the implication is the Bhagavad Purana was much shorter than 18,000 verses, it was just 4. Now within those 4 is the essence, and then 4 expanded into 18,000. According to other descriptions, that's what's on the earthly planet, and there's 1 billion verses in the heavenly planet. So if you want to read a longer Bhagavatam, you have to go to heaven to read the longer version. But the essence is in these 4. These were Brahma's questions. 1. What are the forms of the Lord, both in matter and in transcendence? So Ham Evasam Eva, great. That verse 33 is the answer. Next, how are the different energies of the Lord working? We can see Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes these 4 questions a little differently, but essentially the same. His energies. Forms of the Lord in matter and in transcendence, his energies, that's 2. How does the Lord play with his different energies? So the interaction between his energies and himself. And 4, how may Brahma be instructed to discharge the duty entrusted to him? Now, how he's supposed to build the universe? The prelude to the answers is this verse under discussion, wherein the Lord informs Brahma that knowledge of himself, the supreme absolute truth, as it is stated in the revealed scriptures, is very subtle and cannot be understood unless one is self-realized by the grace of the Lord. The Lord says that Brahma may take the answers as he explains them. This means that transcendental knowledge of the absolute supreme being can be known if it is made known by the Lord himself. By the mental speculation of the great mundane thinkers, the absolute truth cannot be understood. The mental speculators can reach up to the standard of impersonal Brahman realization, but factually, complete knowledge of transcendence is beyond the knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Thus, it is called the supreme confidential wisdom. Out of many liberated souls, someone may be qualified to know the personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also said by the Lord himself that out of many hundreds of thousands of people, one may try for perfection in human life, and out of many liberated souls, one may know him as he is. Therefore, the knowledge of the personality of Godhead may be attained by devotional service only. We're all familiar with all that. Now, this rahasyam, it's sa rahasyam. Rahasyam means devotional service. Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita because he found Arjuna to be a devotee and a friend. Without such qualification, one cannot enter into the mystery. So I call the title of this topic Mystery Disclosed. In case you want to know how to solve the mystery. Mystery Disclosed. Without such qualifications, one cannot enter into the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, one cannot understand the personality of Godhead unless one becomes a devotee and discharges devotional service. Here we are again. This mystery is love of Godhead. In the biography about Bhaktisiddhanta's life, there's a nice passage where there's professor, if my memory is correct, it's usually not, Professor Suthers came because he heard about Bhaktisiddhanta, and he came without prior arrangement, and he just came to Bhaktisiddhanta's headquarters, Chaitanya Mat, Gaudiya Mat. Bhaktisiddhanta was engaged, so he said, I'm busy right now finishing something. If you don't mind, just go with where the devotees are. You can assist in some service, and then I'll be with you shortly. Doesn't say how long shortly was, but he went away to do what Bhaktisiddhanta said. And when Bhaktisiddhanta was finished, he called him, and then he asked the gentleman, "You've come a long way. You know, what were the questions?" I think he's from England. What were the questions that you had? He said, "I got answers to the questions just from doing the service." Doesn't say what the questions were, what the answers to the questions were, but the medium, the point is, it's a nice example, medium of receiving answers, not just information, but answers, the medium of devotional service. That's the mystery. And more specifically, devotional service in the stage of love of Godhead, which is prema. And that's a very high qualification. So to theoretically understand something is It's one level, which it's important. At least we hear and get a basic understanding conceptually, but then to realize the concept, just like I did a little discussion yesterday, Bhaktisiddhanta said, it's not within our power to understand that the name and the person who bears the name are the same. You know, conceptually you can say, yes, I accept it, which is fine. But to realize it is more than fine. Bhaktisiddhanta, I'll just refresh your memory, Bhaktisiddhanta went on to say the way that the name and the possessor of the name are identical can be realized through chanting the name. But one has to hear the name, not with the material ear, but with the spiritual ear. And exactly what that means, he doesn't say, but he explains that the ear conquers the mind. So the mind is not an instrument that can understand transcendence. The material mind is not an instrument. The material ear is not an instrument. The material senses are not instruments. There's instruments, but they're not instruments that can understand transcendence. We can acknowledge it. That's what transcendence is. It's whatever you fill in the blank, transcendence is. Just in relation to the holy name. Abhinatvam nama namino. Abhina tvam nama namino. The name and the object named are abhina, non-different, the same. It's a nice concept. To actually realize that concept, it's not, the mind can't, it's inconceivable. Because what's conceivable is, you know, the object is different than the name of the object. I can say water, and the quenching of thirst is not achieved by saying water, 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 however many times, because they're different, fundamentally different. But the name and the person, not just, you know, everything, quality, form, activities, everything. So to realize that conceptually is one thing, and then realization is yet another thing. So he speaks of hear with the spiritual ear. So this is a little sharing. You know, during our time together yesterday, I was meditating on what does that mean? And I realized I can't understand what it means, because he said you can't understand what it means by your material apparatus. So how do you get to the spiritual ear? How you get to the spiritual ear is, you know, Patanjali Muni said, you know, that, or Rupa Goswami said, you know, the Hari Bhakti Vilas verses we quoted said, it's where, or Dhyana Chandra Goswami, where the mantra and the mind, the mantra is fully immersed in the mind is fully immersed in the mantra. So how do you get that? You know, you have to hear. So when you hear dirgha kala, over an extended period of time, then the power of the mantra can be heard. Or say it negatively. Without that focus of hearing, because the ear conquers the mind, the ear can conquer the mind. And through the mind you can't get a realization of what's inconceivable. It remains inconceivable. You can acknowledge it. nod your head yes, and check the box and get an A in your Bhakti Shastri exam. But to realize it is another thing. So hearing. So this is this is the message of this verse that we heard yesterday. Is why I picked this verse and purport. When there's uninterruptedly, that's easier said than done, but uninterruptedly hearing, then the ear conquers the mind. And the mind becomes then inert. And the senses become inert because they're conquered by the ear, by hearing. And that's hearing with the spiritual ear. I shared this, and I'm going to do it again because it's an appreciation. It's very simple. It's a sunny day. And even if the sun is above the clouds, the sun's energy, it's really simple. The sun's energy is two, heat and light. It's like fire. Wherever there's fire, there's heat and light. Where there's heat, there's fire. Where there's light, there's fire. Where there's heat and light, there's fire. Heat and light are inseparable from fire or from the sun. But the heat of the sun and where we are in Naperville, it's quite different temperature. But heat and light are properties of the sun. So, is it possible to make that heat and light of the sun burn? Absolutely. Here's an experiment. Maybe you did this when you were kids. You can have your kids do it, because one of the places I was at recently, the kids heard me say it 3 times, so they were playing with a magnifying glass. And you hold the magnifying glass at a certain angle and a certain height above something that's combustible, something that can burn, paper or wood or your arm. Is combustible. The soul isn't, but the body is. And it burns. So there's the light of the sun. It's fire. And if you focus it, it's fire. But unfocused, it's not fire, but it's fire. Same. Namabhas is pure. Because the name is pure, but our experience is abhas. So if you stay with, you do like what Lord Brahma did, or do like we tried to do yesterday, stay focused. It's like the magnifying glass and taking the heat and light of the sun and making it very focused. Then it's not just what we're accustomed to, it's being able to hear with the spiritual ear. The covering is burned or transcended. And the non-difference of the name and the person named, or the name of the person and the person, they're the same. The all-powerful personality Godhead. And when that is experienced, remember the rest of what we read, Bhaktisiddhanta said, Bhava follows and prema follows bhava. So we're not there yet. Most of us aren't there yet. But that's how you get there. And that's the hearing with the spiritual ear. And that results in love of God. So that's what Lord Brahma experienced. Let's continue with the purport. And to attain the stage of transcendental love of God, regular principles of devotional service must be followed. The regulative principles are called Vidhi Bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, and they can be practiced by a neophyte with his present senses. Such regulative principles are mainly based on hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, and such hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord can be made possible in the association of devotees only. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 main principles for attaining perfection in devotional service. Association with devotees, parentheses, hearing. Chanting the glories of the Lord. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the pure devotee, residing in a holy place connected with the Lord, worshipping the deity of the Lord with devotion. Such rules and regulations are parts of devotional service. So, as requested by Lord Brahma, the Personality of Godhead will explain all about the 4 questions put forward by Brahma, and others also, which are parts and parcels of the same questions. So now how all of this works, it's a mystery, and then the mystery is devotional service, and even more specifically, devotional service in the mature stages, prema. Here's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, or parts of it. Prema is well known as rahasya. So it's not just bhakti or rishikena rishikesha sevanam, but it's prema. I will explain, he's now paraphrasing Krishna's words. I will explain what is intimate, rahasyam, prema bhakti. Realize prema bhakti, which is accomplished by that knowledge of my form. So it's sa in the verse, it's sa rahasyam. So he, the personality of Godhead, is going to reveal his form, sa. But the real revelation of his form, he's already seeing his form, but the seeing of his form has been made possible because the Lord revealed his form. And the Lord revealed his form because he became purified. And in this purified state, there's no obstruction anymore. When there's obstruction, we can't see. When the obstruction is removed, of course, the Lord isn't obliged. The Lord isn't obliged. One more time. The Lord isn't obliged. He may not show his form. But it's the mercy comes into one who's had their spiritual ear engaged in the process of hearing. That means sustained, dirgha kala, sustained over time, as Brahma did, as we may do. And so there's for us, like Prabhupada with those nice quotes, 16 is minimum. And when there are opportunities for increasing, it's not a rule. Chanting the name once is very powerful. Or like I expressed, Prabhupada explaining this Harinam Sankirtan, that how he started in the storefront of 2nd Avenue, and then went into the public with chanting and dancing. And there was no drum, there was no prasadam, wasn't all the the bells and whistles and all the nice things that make the process of bhakti very attractive. All there was chanting, but chanting from the lips of a pure devotee. It had great power. I remember one time Srila Prabhupada was speaking in a place in India And because of the audience, he decided to speak in Hindi instead of in English. And as he was speaking in Hindi instead of English, the Western sannyasis sitting on the stage with Prabhupada were looking at each other and decided to get up and leave because they couldn't understand. And Prabhupada stopped speaking in Hindi, spoke in English, said, "Stay. Even if you don't understand, the sound vibration is purifying." And then the flip, he was just heard a lecture, Prabhupada, 7th chapter, verse number 1, Bhagavad Gita. He's in Bhubaneswar, and he's speaking in English. And you can hear in the background, there's a lot of jibber jabber. People weren't paying attention because they couldn't understand English. And then Prabhupada said it in English. That's how I could understand it. He said, let them just sit down, even if they don't understand English. The vibration is purifying. So the comprehension of getting your mind and your, the coverings oriented in such a way that, okay, at least conceptually I can understand what's being said, although I haven't realized it. That's a beginning. It's a beginning. It's a beginning. I'm pausing because yesterday I had the opportunity, day before yesterday, I had the opportunity to address some youth. And I was told in the course of that exchange that many of the things that I said, Mukunda said the day before I spoke. I mean, I was just asking questions. That's how it started. The question was, do any of you here have an idea why there's a lot of interest in kirtan amongst the youth and not so much interest in japa? Any ideas? I mean, your approach was different, but that's how I started. And then the first answer was music. I like music. Okay. Have you thought about japa? No. I mean, it was immediate. No. It wasn't like I was insulting him or he was insulting me. He was just being honest. I haven't even thought about it. So what is it about kirtan? Music. That's what was at the start. But it's kirtan. So there may be layers and layers and layers and layers, but it's kirtan. It's the holy name. And so slowly something's going to happen. Slowly. Abbas. Shadow or reflection. Abbas. Fine. So it's fine. It's fine. And it won't go, there were two more like that. There was something else and something else. No, I've never even thought about chanting. Not like I have an aversion. I've never even thought about it. I like kirtan. Haven't even thought about chanting. Japa. So there's stages. And so the beginning is the beginning. That's fine. You got to begin somewhere. And so if people begin somewhere, that's fine. And then go, it'll happen of its own accord. What to speak of if there's sadhu sangha to help it go, maybe a little more swiftly than if there wasn't sadhu sangha. People in the kirtan that actually have an attraction for the name, not just an attraction for music, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want to belabor the point, but there are stages in bhakti, there are stages, and when one is sincere is a word that Prabhupada would use all the time. And what does sincere mean? Once Prabhupada was asked, what does sincere mean? Prabhupada's answer, everybody knows what sincere means. What's his answer? You really want to know. Inquisitive. Jigyasu, I want to know. Not just cosmetic, I want to know. I want to experience who I really am. I want to experience who Krishna really is. I want to experience truth with a capital T rather than illusion. I want to, and sincerely, not just socially. That was another one of the answers. Social. I like kirtan because it's the social buzz. Okay. But there's kirtan. So when one is sincere, then the bhakti process becomes more effective, abhas becomes less shadowy and more real, proportionate to one's sincerity of the application of the process. And then sustaining it over time. Like, if you're holding a magnifying glass, it's not just having the magnifying glass. You have to hold your hand steady. And then it'll burn. To chant effectively, to engage in the process of bhakti effectively, stay with it. And stay specifically with chanting. It's the ear. And then the wandering mind, etc., can be conquered. It works. The power of the name can be then experienced, and then progressively, bhava and prema. That's the saurahasyam, it's the mystery. Okay. That's the topic I wanted to share this morning, following our 64 round day. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the very inspiring and deep class. On one hand, like you were saying, it happens and it happens gradually. On the other hand, sometimes we may feel it's too gradual, or like there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that you can go on chanting for many lifetimes and still not see the result. So you mentioned that just even if we don't understand, if we hear it works, but why does the Chaitanya Charitamrita then warn us that it can take many lifetimes? It should then happen quickly maybe, or more swiftly, if the vibration is there.
We can't hurry Krishna. You remember that one? So I'm not sure what you're making a comment, not so much asking a question.
Well, the question part is that that how do we resolve these two things? That on one hand it says it could take many, many lifetimes. On the other hand, the name's effect, even namabhas, has such a powerful effect. So it seems as though it would act more quickly.
Well, we covered this a couple of times. So Abbas cleanses the power in Abbas is to cleanse away prarabdha karma. Like when the sun rises, the darkness of night is dispelled, similarly. So there's light, and it's not dark anymore when there's light. But to get the full effect, so it can be Abbas for many lifetimes. But the full effect is when there's sincerity and there's application in the ways that are indicated how the sincere person can apply. I mean, that's what we were attempting to cover and discuss and, invite. So the sincere application of the principle. That's how it reconciles. For me, it reconciles. Does that reconcile for you or no?
Yes, Maharaj. I remember you saying that the abhas includes the endeavor of trying to keep going forward.
Yes.
So maybe it's stagnant when endeavor is not there. It just we're not trying to endeavor.
It's like, how does bhakti begin? That's a nice question. It's a question that comes in the first chapter, the first shower in Madhurya Kandamini. How does bhakti begin? He raises the question. And then he looks at, 10 different possible answers. Maybe. And the conclusion is, citing verses from the Bhagavatam, it's yadrichchaya. Yadrichchaya means somehow or other, meaning there's no material cause. So if there's no material cause, then how do you go from Abbas to beyond Abbas? It's sadhu sangha. Through sadhu, that which is beyond where you are right now, you can get light beyond where you are now and go into more light. Association, taken the right way, can carry you to a higher consciousness place, to the sadhu place, by sadhu sangha. But then sadhu sangha doesn't mean just hanging out. It means you receive and then you perform. You carry. So there's the cultivation part of bhakti. But you have to have the transmitter to have, and your receiver is on. And then one can go beyond Abbas. It's not mechanical, but one can go beyond Abbas by descending mercy. And yeah. Where's Premanand? Is Premanand here? It's here, there. Can I share this story about the squirrel? It's okay? Okay. Yesterday, the last couple of days. Okay. She shared with me, following the 64-round day, that one of the places she likes to chant is in her yard. And there's a tree in her yard, and she sits under the tree in her yard and chants. So the day before yesterday or whenever, she was sitting there chanting, and a squirrel came that appeared to be damaged or, limping or broken or something, And he just sat there hearing her chanting, like, help, or something like that. And she just kept chanting. And then some time passed. Later, her husband was sitting under the same tree, and the same squirrel came, limping and, about to die. And while he was chanting, the squirrel died, hearing chanting. Now, her question was, how did that happen? And my answer was, Yadrishchaya. No, there's super soul had something to do with prompting the squirrel to hang out and leave his body when chanting. But you know what the result is? Guaranteed. The result. And he's in a squirrel body. So how did that happen? But you know, it's just descending mercy. You can't create it. You can't tie up all the squirrels, put them on a chain, and just have them sit in front of you while you're chanting japa. They're going to run the other way. But somehow that guy just... So, Yadrishchaya. Now, he's got a long way to go from, to get to Prema Bhakti, but that's okay. You know, there's a beginning. So by receiving the beneficial effect of the sound of the holy name, it's going to act, guaranteed, even in a squirrel or any other form of life. So when we're in the human form of life, we have more developed consciousness, and we can hear and understand instructions and act on those instructions, and through sadhu sangha go a little further from abhas to shuddha. We don't have to. It's not a guaranteed anything. And it's a little bit like Mukunda's question the other day of, you know, having an expectation. It's whatever Krishna wants, that's real. But if we have from our side an eagerness for being connected from our side, and he can respond however he likes. And he will, but you know, in his own sweet will and in his own way. And to where that idea come from for us to wish to have that connection? Sadhu Sangha. And you grow it further, Sadhu Sangha and Sadhu Sangha. But you know, not just hang out, receive and establish that connection through that representative of Krishna. And act in that relationship with that representative of Krishna, which is, in effect, your relationship with Krishna, or enhancing your relationship with Krishna. Anything else? Yes?
Maharaj, I just wanted to share a reflection. When you were speaking about accessing the spiritual ear, and you were speaking to the mystery of it,
Yes.
the fact that, you know, there may be some explanation of how to get there to a certain degree, but ultimately it's not like you do X, Y, Z, and then it happens.
Right.
And I really appreciated that point, because it made me think about how it seemed, and also in connection with my question from the other day, it seems like the key is almost to learn to appreciate the mystery of Krishna consciousness, like in itself, and just to embrace the fact that we can't, you know, capture it from our own faculties necessarily. And if we are able to live in peace with that, then it's almost like it can take us forward. So I just wanted to share that reflection.
Well, I really like that statement that Bhaktisiddhanta made. You know, that in the last paragraph of that letter, he said, there's no need to practice meditation upon the Ashtakaliya Leela. It will happen. You know, the spiritual world opens. And so one can try to enter the spiritual world by practicing. But the practice is descending mercy, starting with the process of hearing. Hearing the name or the qualities and pastimes, etc., hearing Srimad Bhagavatam with a spiritual ear. So then, and how does that work? That's the mystery, and it's just fine. And it works. I mean, it's proportionate to one's sincerity, it works. You know, the essence is relationship. Okay. Premananda.
Thank you, Maharaj. When we hear about the beauty of Krishna described in the scriptures, we just simply appreciate that, just hearing about the beauty. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Prema Bhakti is accomplished by that knowledge of my form. So, is there a difference between simple appreciation and knowledge?
Yeah. Well, that it's, you know, it starts with information, and then there's, you know, becoming fixed in that knowledge or information. But then, you know, there's the descending mercy, because there's ascending mercy even to hear the descriptions. And so then there's the appreciation, but then comes, you know, the realization. I mean, as you were speaking, I was thinking of, there's a really nice pastimes that I'm going to be sharing with the Chinese devotees. I mean, tomorrow morning we're going to enter into Madhava Mahotsava. And it's Jiva Goswami writing what Rupa Goswami told him to write. It's a long, so the pastime of Srimati Radharani becoming crowned the queen of Vraja is the pastime. So, in the course of narrating, the storyline is interrupted by the description of Krishna and what he looked like, how he's dressed, his smile, his dealings with his associates. Then it goes back to the storyline. Then it comes to Radharani. And then there's this just beautiful description. When we have the initiation lecture, I'm going to do the same thing. It's from that verse 56 from Sri Brahma Samhita, Shriya Kanta. So the description of those verses is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Wait till you hear it. It's beautiful. It was circulated, wasn't it? The PDF. Did anybody get it? Anybody not get it? Was it circulated? Yes, it was circulated. So somewhere in your phone, you can look at it later, but we're going to be discussing it, you know, between 10 and 11 o'clock, and it's just beautiful description. And it's so attractive. It's like, let's go. But we can't just go. And this is what Mukunda is saying. So your question is it sufficient just to appreciate, even if it's not something that's within our experience? Yes. However, by that gift given from Krishna, to hear these narrations of the beauty of Krishna or the beauty of the spiritual world, this is not different than Krishna, etc., etc. The appreciation can lead to the heart softening and melting and entering into that experience. And there's a response to your question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. First, I would like to appreciate that you always leave a at least half an hour or so for the questions. It's so nice.
This was 40 minutes.
And also, I'm just so grateful to be here. And I want to say that you are so fortunate to have Maharaj and all these retreats and festivals and such a wonderful spiritual leader. You are very fortunate. My question is, earlier during this festival, you were saying about self-centeredness.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder, as my body is aging, I just feel I need more time, all these aches and pains, and it seems like more time for maintenance or my mind. And maybe you can help me some few words about, and I feel sometimes guilty, but then I see the bodily limitations, and I just cannot force it, right? Because it does what it does.
There's songs about what you just said. Put it to music. There are different phases of life, and in each phase of life there's opportunity and challenge. Good fortune and ill fortune is just... And at some point in time, this body and your body and all of our bodies are going to be kaput. They're going to be back to dust. So, given the circumstance of that you're passing through now, that it has what, the elements that you described, consciousness isn't created or checked by those circumstances. You have to accept the circumstances, whatever that is, it is. And is it possible that your consciousness can remain above the circumstances? It's certainly possible. And then there's a strategy, or there's a sadhana, there's practice that can help. And you take shelter of that. So you have because of your age and your spirit, you have advantages that the younger generation people don't have. So you have a service you can receive and you can give in ways that they don't have the same capacity. So you do that, which is suited to your circumstance. And meanwhile, the focus is not just the service, but most important is that Krishna should be pleased. So you tolerate and you receive and you give, because that's what's given to you. And just smile and accept it. And you probably know some people, I know some people, that their physical circumstance is such that it's extreme. And that is, so it is what it is for them. It's just extreme. They're really restricted by the circumstance. So count your blessings. And they can count theirs, because it is what it is. But consciousness isn't created or inhibited by circumstance. That's it. So acceptance of the circumstance, and then with the circumstance that Krishna has bestowed upon you at this stage of life or at this particular period of time. The relationship with Krishna is not created or impeded. There's where your attention should go. Someone else right next to you.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to comment on the first thing. Once upon a time, there wasn't this temple. Once upon a time, there was just a handful of devotees out there somewhere, further away from here than this place. And it was just home gatherings, and then. So I give credit to the community, because I go many places, and the same thing doesn't happen as what happened here. So it's the receptivity and the enthusiasm and sincerity of the individuals that have made. And it's ongoing. It's not like done. Ask Premananda. For example, to raise the funds to keep the wheels turning. It's not a piece of cake. I'll do one more sharing. In Houston, the monthly overhead in Houston is almost double what it is here. So you know what it is here, double it, and that's Houston. And to build Houston, it decades. And to maintain it, it's like, phew. So, it's a really good community. And at the center of the good community is the deities and the worshipers of the deities. And so those devotees here that are doing deity worship, you're helping to maintain and sustain the community. I'm just speaking in response to what you said. No, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So when we wait for the...
When we do what?
When we wait for the mercy to descend, so we should have greed that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And at the same time,
Patience.
Patience, and I see internal peace sometimes. Not peaceful. So
You feel internal peace, but not peaceful.
No, I don't feel that internal peace or peaceful.
You don't feel.
So how do we, we should have greed at the same time we should be...
Just have a conversation with Premananda. She just gave the answer. It's a consciousness situation. Turn your attention towards Krishna. And Mukunda, same thing, saying same thing. Just, what Krishna wants to do with you is just fine. I'm not going to change my position unless Krishna does this or Krishna does that with me, and then otherwise, I'm taking a hike, I'm going somewhere else. So you have a relationship. Or it's like Bhattahari in Kirtan. He has a relationship with the holy name. I mean, he didn't say that, I can see it. So whether it's this or whether it's that, it's just in the essence of that relationship with Krishna, in whatever form, it can be the Bhagavatam, it can be the deity, it can be the holy name, it can be combination, could be serving the Vaishnavas, could be any one of those things or combination. But your connection with Krishna and your relationship with Krishna through those mediums, and just, you take shelter there. And if you don't take shelter there, then you'll remain unpeaceful, turbulent. Because outside is turbulent. No question about it. A river that has waves, and sometimes it's wild, and sometimes it's less wild, but there's always waves. So you can remain peaceful even when it's stormy. If that shelter, that connection, I'm using this word relationship, that sense of being connected to Krishna is there. You can, in the midst of a hurricane, you're peaceful. I mean, you may have to deal with the hurricane and the stuff flying around in the air and stuff like that, but you can remain peaceful. Do your service according to circumstance.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. And also, I wanted to let you know that I
Speak slowly, please.
Okay. This festival actually saved my bhakti 2 years ago because I was started like in March of 22, and in June this festival was in Rogers Park, and it was really amazing. The other thing I wanted to share that what helps me to keep chanting is like I noticed that if I fall asleep with like
Speak slowly.
Okay. If I fall asleep thinking something, like what bothers me, I kind of tend to wake up with the similar thoughts. So I decided to use that quality of my mind to chant before I fall asleep.
Yeah, that's good.
And became much easier to keep my rounds and do the required chanting.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Kilatar, put your hand up. He's going to bring you the microphone. This is our last question. You have the honor of the last question.
Thank
I hope
you.
it's a good one.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, like you mentioned in the discussion, like the medium of receiving the answers is medium of devotional service.
Say it again.
Medium of receiving the answers to the questions, like in case of Lord Brahma, is via the medium of devotional service.
Well, okay.
So my question
Not
is...
exactly I said that, but that's okay. It's true.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so such like, and I know that this when we offer service to Guru and Vaishnava, it should be pleasing to the Guru and Vaishnava. But if I feel like if I am doing something and it is not up to the mark, then what steps should I take to course correct myself and move in the positive direction and learn the lesson and make the course correction and
This
try
is
to...
the how-to question again. Here's my flashcard. And abhyasa. You're introspective. You see what you just described. It's not up to the mark. Okay. Now, who are persons who I can learn from by their achar and prachar that is better up to the mark than me? It's sadhusanga. And then associate with them, hear from them, try to apply their understandings that they're giving you, and then you repeat. So that's the abhyasa part. Knowing that even when you do it the next time and the next time, the next time, it's still going to be not at the mark. But it's the same response as Gopal Hari's question. I want to go. I'm in the shadow place. I want to go to the pure place, because consciousness will enable. But my consciousness is in the shadowy stage. So I want to go beyond, and it takes the association of elevated souls, more elevated than me at least, and hear and serve, repeat, abhyasa. That answer is the same answer as Patanjali Muni's description of how abhyasa becomes fixed. Remember that definition? So do that. Srila Prabhupada ki? Yeah.
recognize our prasadam sponsors. So if you would please come forward and receive Shri Shri Radha Shyamasundars Maha Prasadam from Maharaj's hands. We have Rachna Hampi Mataji, who sponsored Thursday lunch. Girivardhari Prabhu and Shriya Mataji, who sponsored Saturday's breakfast. Vamsidhari Prabhu and Shatarupa Mataji, who sponsored Saturday's breakfast and dinner. Sandhya Mataji, who sponsored Sunday's breakfast. Chaitanya Rasa Prabhu and Rangadevi Mataji for sponsoring Sunday's breakfast. Are they here? Chaitanya Rasa Prabhu? They're at the retreat, but looks like they're not here right now. And also Divya Ananda Prabhu and Srimati Kishori Mataji. Please come forward for sponsoring Sunday's breakfast. They're here at the retreat for the first time from Alachua, but they've become part of our family, so we don't want you to leave now. And also want to recognize devotees that can't be here right now, but they sponsored. We have Prahlad Priya Prabhu and Padmavati Mataji, Sachikumar Prabhu and Prematangani Mataji. We're missing your presence here. And Raghunandan Prabhu and Jayanti Mataji as well, hoping that you'll be with us next year for this retreat. So let us invoke the deity's blessings upon these families by together chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Breakfast downstairs at 9, initiations at 10.